Welcome back to the next episode of the Ecom Growth Show. I'm your host, Dane Coleman. With me, I've got a very long time friend of mine, Sean Napier, who has been, well, you know what? Sean, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, and then I'm going to fill in what you leave out. Not all of it.
Well, thank you for having me here. I've been in the tech space for about 25 years, big focus on UI, UX design, and then the technologies that those kind of overlay, and working with clients in all industries with focusing in right now, particularly in the e-commerce space and just everything that's happening there and going from kind of marketplaces to websites and the confusion and not only how people should do it, but helping to continue to provide solutions that excel their current business and add on and just grow their company in whole.
Yeah, cool. So from my viewpoint, Sean is like the tech mecca for me. I know a fair amount about technology, mostly what's out there, things that can be done, but he's the guy that I go to for all of my stuff. In fact, his company has built how many of my 4 of my websites, I think.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, all the way from design, colors, everything to where it is today. And they're good websites, by the way. And so today I want to talk about an Amazon seller that knows they need to diversify off of Amazon, but doesn't know how to do it. And, you know, we all know there's Wix, there's Shopify, there's WordPress. Spoiler alert, if you're thinking about doing WordPress, WooCommerce is a free cart, but it's a lot more complicated than Shopify. Would you say, Sean?
Yeah, it's a solution we're very comfortable with. We've implemented a lot of times, but it's one that I would recommend more so based on what the needs are of the backend, so inventory management and things like this. So if you're not dealing with kind of multiple warehouses, many SKUs, and all the things that kind of happen back there for those sellers, then Shopify tends to kind of raise up as the better solution, at least as you grow your business.
So are you saying that you would, understanding depending on the size of the person and brand here, would you say, make the blanket statement that Shopify is just what you would suggest initially?
If someone came to me and said, hey, I'm trying to get into e-commerce, I want to start kind of slow, and I want to get into that space pretty quickly, then Shopify is probably my top recommendation. Now, of course, from there, I'd love to kind of interview and go over there, because there's getting the product to your customer and then looking good and educating them. But then it is just understanding that back end. So, you know, having a plan for where you are today to where you're going to be in, let's say, 12 months. Even if I could have a 30-second conversation, I'd say 7 out of 10 times Shopify probably ends up being the right solution. So it's blanketed, but not fully blanketed.
Okay, cool. I got it. All right, sweet. So let's talk about what it takes to move into the Shopify space. Since 7 out of 10 chances, that's going to be what happens. Let's talk about what it takes to do that. And now, just so you know, everybody, Sean has fairly extensive Amazon experience, not just as helping people, but actually as a seller as well. You used to sell car parts.
Yeah, we partnered up and we did a business that did car and boat parts. So I spent about 2 to 3 years kind of learning my lessons through bumps and bruises.
Yeah.
Had some great help. So, you know, you were heavily involved in giving me some great advice. And
yep. And August too.
Yeah, August as well. And it's not a plug or anything like that. There were a number of times I was kind of lost in that space. And it was really just kind of right in front of my eyes. So, you know, thanks for back that, by the way. I'm pretty sure I thanked you for that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, well, every time I come to your house, I get fed. So, you know, we'll work for food. Although you're not the one that feeds me.
Next question.
Okay, so next question. So what steps need to happen? What should an Amazon seller prepare? How should they prepare to move into into Shopify?
Yeah, so I think some of the first things that someone should look at is, you know, if you want to make the move, that's great. But there are some steps that I recommend taking. And that is, you have the content, you have images, you have a lot of things for your products. Maybe you're very successful, mid-successful, or just launching. But probably up until this point, you've been focused in on the Amazon market. And that is a market within a market. And I think that's one of the important differences that people should understand and prepare for is the way that you've written out your listings, you know, the title of the listing itself we see in Amazon a lot of times you're putting really what's a description into the title because you're trying to grab it through keywords, through eyes. It's just a different game. It's a different world out in the e-commerce space and the website because you're going to be driving people to your website. When they get to your website, imagine if you went to a site and that layout and content was like Amazon, it would be strange. It would be very cluttered. It becomes messy and even confusing because now all of your products are together. So the structure of your listings might be the same. If you see that listing page with just your products outside of the kind of wrap of Amazon, you're like, what's happening here, right? I'm almost being oversold the product. So prepping your data is a big thing. Stepping back and realizing that you're now going to be talking to an audience that isn't in that Amazon kind of bubble, so to speak. So they're going to speak a little bit more, search a little bit more human. So depending on what your product is. And so you're going to use the keywords of the body. There's meta descriptions, all sorts of great things that I'm sure on this podcast, and there's great information out there, or the podcasts come here, you can educate yourself on, but it's just really understanding you're going into a different demographic, even if it's the same person, how they're looking for it, and what they're going for. So once you start on that, you don't have to wait for it. There's a couple of ways to go with Shopify. And the two most common is you take kind of the vanilla or unaltered instance of Shopify and start making configurations yourself and putting in titles. They have quite a good way of kind of walking you through the initial setup of the site.
Yeah, I dare say probably for an e-com store, I'd say it's the easiest in my experience.
I would agree. It's done in such a way that you don't have to be an expert. Now, the one thing to keep in mind that some people jump in and get it going and say, I was able to do this all in a day. Look at me, I'm a rock star. On CV, Shopify expert, here you go.
And then they go, where are my sales? It's like 2:00. I haven't had a single sale yet.
Yeah, exactly. And there's the secondary part is, now you go, okay, I did the initial setup. I want to change it a little bit. And you start hitting these walls. And they're not walls. To be fair, they're put there on purpose. There's something in design that we call design friction. And Shopify does it on purpose too. They say, hey, you can get to the code. You can do whatever you want to do, but you shouldn't. So we're not going to make it super easy for you to do. But yeah, it's the other side of it. And many people do this is they find a template and you can apply that template. Shopify has a great library on the stores of templates that are pre-built. A lot of really good developers in that space, but just take your time. If you see something that looks kind of nice and you jam in all your Amazon information right away and you get a sale in the first day, well done on just setting up an e-commerce space, but know that that's probably going to start consuming a lot of your time because it's just not configured to kind of create its own e-commerce space in itself.
Yeah. So I have experience with this, exactly that scenario as a seller. So we took our vitamins and I built a Shopify. This is quite a few years ago. And we made enough money on there to keep the lights on, but not so much that it made sense to continue running because, with each order, this is before the time that Shopify had integrated with Amazon and you could FBA the orders, which is, if you didn't know that, whoever's listening, Mom, hi Mom, if you didn't know that, you can actually integrate with Amazon. Shopify integrates with Amazon so that orders that come through Shopify will be fulfilled by Amazon. Now, that's not always the right thing to do, but it's certainly the easiest to begin with. And I would recommend it. That's what I did on my latest Shopify store.
Yeah, I did touch on that point too. And maybe we can go back to the beginning of it is, what are you trying to get out of your store? So if you're just trying to, you go, hey, I want to have my e-commerce channel over here and I want it separate of it, completely agnostic of Amazon. There's reasons to do that. And there's ways to do that really well. And some of the benefits there can be, you can A/B test a little bit. So how are you doing your content and SEO on this side versus over here? And you can take things that work back and forth, but they, through the integration with Amazon, which was brilliant. And I think everyone should say thank you to Shopify and Amazon for working together on that, because for those that need it, a fantastic way of putting it in place. But also when you sell your products, the fulfillment of the product, but you can say, look, I have to value my time. You own a business. There's a lot of moving pieces of it. You need these things to kind of be able to work a little bit on their own, and they need time for you. So some stores will start out not only fulfilled by Amazon, but will actually send the sales to Amazon. So they're just broadcasting in another way. And if they can get that traffic into their site, what that's telling you is maybe you can start, not going through Amazon to save a little bit on some of those costs that Amazon or the incur with Amazon. So, you don't always have to go from nothing to, your own store making $1 million or $2 million a year. There's some really good steps you can take along the way.
Yeah. Now, there's another system that I've not tested myself, nor have I spoken to anyone that's tested it in any great detail, but there's the Buy with Prime button, right? And you could build a site to look like Shopify. You could do this on WordPress. So, and WordPress and WooCommerce, right? So you could conceivably do this. Actually, I'll let you answer that. But anyhow, the point is that you build good-looking pages, and then you use the Buy with Prime button, and the whole transaction happens through Amazon. Now, I've heard that if you do that, you see a lift in your organic sales. So, surprise, surprise, if you use an Amazon system, they go, oh, cool, you're using us. We'll give you a little pat on the butt.
Yeah. That's the kind of like AI right now. What is in an LLM? No one totally knows at its core. Amazon's algorithm. You talk about who knows, right, at its core.
Yeah.
But I will say that, Amazon is a business. And so whatever they're doing, they are going to try to do two things, which is flow sales to those they know will close the sale and bring in people that have potential to make sales. So if you're making sales, you're driving traffic, because if you can build a website that's driving traffic to your listings, we know that a certain percent of those listings are buying other products. It's not lost on Amazon and these other platforms that ultimately that was coming from you. So I'm certain there's some maybe kickback or some sort of consideration to your account for that. I will, if you don't mind on that one, and marketing in this particular area is something we assist with more from a front and back end. But I will say, having done some marketing campaigns myself in Amazon and having done a number outside Google, these sort of platforms, is when you're in Amazon, you're competing with other marketers with Amazon. I won't get into that.
Yeah,
that's in that area.
No, August is the expert in that area. I am far from it. I know enough to be able to spoke good on stage, but no, August is the one. Like anything PPC related, I go to him. But this is a subject that I'm really interested in, because sending traffic to, well, it's been a big thing in the Amazon space. Like, oh yeah, don't bother using Google. Google doesn't work. And then a couple of companies come out and they say, hey, use Google because Amazon gives you attribution. And I'm kind of going down the timeline here. And then people go, oh, yeah, but the attribution doesn't work. And then they go, oh, hey, now the attribution works. I'm getting that 10% kickback from Amazon. But by and large, the Amazon community feels that running Google ads is not profitable. So we can talk about that and sending it to Amazon, but I want to talk about that and sending it to your Shopify.
Yeah, and thank you. That's where I too wanted to kind of get to it.
I think you're back. I lost you for a second.
All right.
Okay. Did you answer all my questions? Yeah.
I did.
Yeah, in that half second. Yeah. Thank you very much, everyone. This has been a great episode, Sean. Good to see you, buddy. All right, cool. You heard what I said though, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And it was right aligned with where I wanted to go with it too, is that, as Amazon sellers, you kind of get into dealing again within that bubble. And I tend to agree, well, partially because the statistics that are out there is when you're paying for outside advertisements into Amazon, I mean, think about it, they're landing on your page and you're casting a wide net, right? So on your list, whatever are other things that people want. So not unlike when you go outside of Amazon and you advertise, let's say with Google, and you get to Google, there's yours and there's other things. So people are going to take different directions, right? But you're advertising, you're competing against advertisers differently. So Amazon advertisers are savvy. They know these words. The way we Google and the way we search on Amazon are different. If you haven't, pay attention next time. See how you write it on the
No, I see. So I go to Amazon when I know what I want to buy. And it used to be that there wasn't so many options. So I know what product I want. And now I'm going to go find the brand that I'm going to purchase from on Amazon. On Google, I'm looking for what is the solution? What is the product that is the solution to this thing I want to solve? Let's call it a mechanical pencil, right? I want a mechanical pencil that is sturdy and not a piece of junk and blah, 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 right? What do I do? So I look up best mechanical pencils or highest quality or whatever. I find those mechanical pencils that have been made for people that draft, and they're like, it's $150 or $250 single pencil. It's like, that's the one I want. The really, really, really expensive one, you know?
Yeah. And then right below, that's the one you actually buy.
Yeah, for $12.
Yeah. And the other part, I do the same. And I think a lot of people do the same, but there's another layer to that is sometimes you don't know that you want a mechanical pencil, right? I mean, you know what you want, but you may not know it's a mechanical pencil, right? So the way you can kind of advertise and go is quite a bit different. So think of it a little bit more holistically. You know, I'm someone that's looking to solve a solution, but I may not know what that solution is yet. And you can really capitalize on, and this goes back to the content, the way you write your descriptions and your titles, you know, think of those users that you're bringing up and go back to speaking a little bit more like a human, not kind of speaking Amazon, which almost is a language for sellers and buyers. But
Yeah, for sure. So what about, this is a bit of a side thing here. My next question actually is, how do we drive traffic? But before that, what about AI for e-com? You know, the days of using AI to find what brands to go, like I'm doing this now. I go, okay, I want a sleeping bag. So I go to ChatGPT and I say, you know, give me a list of the 10 top manufacturers of sleeping bags and why they are the best. And maybe I go, okay, I want a synthetic fill sleeping bag. And then I'm going to get my initial list from there. And I'm going to find out that REI and Eddie Bauer and whoever else, these people have been making these sleeping bags for 78 years. Like, okay, cool. I want to check there first, right? So what are your thoughts on AI ecom, AIEC?
yeah, lots of thoughts, but I'll try to stay within there. So I is inevitable, of course, in kind of penetrating into many spaces, you know,
Kind
and
of.
it's not as widely maybe recognized, but it's been around for a number of years. It's really kind of taken off more recently, due a number of reasons. But
Yeah,
so
I
I
use
think,
Microsoft Clippy.
yeah, no, that was good actually. So, you know, I think for a number of people, it's kind of coming out of nowhere, but for a lot, it's not, right? But I think as sellers and buyers and just people in the industry, we do have to realize, you know, let's go back to when Google started coming around, right? Very similar. So people had a way to kind of ask questions and get information without being technical. And that evolved and evolved, and evolved, right? So, you know, on the top level, I'd say don't freak out about it. This isn't, you know, this is just another iteration of the advancements in the fields. And then recognizing, what do we do with Google, right? We started writing out keywords and using our content and pointing based on how people would use Google. So I think it's important, to your point, to use an AI solution, if for nothing else, then to get some feedback on how your users are using it. You know, what does it give them when they say, I'm looking for a good sleeping bag and I'm doing these things? Because that model, and there's many, but if you take Grok and, you know, OpenAI and, you know, kind of go down the list, Gemini, but there's a couple on the top, get in there and ask those questions that you think your customers may ask. See
Smart.
what's
Okay.
coming back and leverage that, right? Because this is for, I think, the vast majority of sellers, they're just trying to get the truth in front of their customers. We just need to know how to do it. So it's
Yeah.
kind of a reverse way to see what they might be being exposed to.
Yeah. Okay. And considering that AIs are trained on the data that's available on the internet, I don't think that the days of writing content are gone. I don't think they'll ever be gone, personally. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, not at all. My personal stance, and, you know, maybe for another podcast to be having back, is we're creating an AI
Not a
solution.
chance.
Okay, well then, you know what? I'm not telling you the rest. And so, you know, we're in that space ourselves, as many people are. And what drives me with AI is you know, how can this technology or usage of this technology make us better at what we do? Not kind of replace everything that we're doing. That's from the standpoint, just, you know, training, becoming better, you know, but it's also from a standpoint that what makes us great as non-AI things is the mistakes that turn out to not be mistakes. And we need to remember and appreciate that art. So writing content in the way that we put it together, the fact that it's not perfect, a lot of times makes it perfect. And add to that point too, is if you take a standard model, we'll use OpenAI. I think most people, ChatGPT are familiar with this one. And if you go in and ask a question and I go in the same time and ask a question, we both say, hey, write us a blog on mechanical pencils. It will be different, but it will be very similar, right, at its core. So as more and more people are using these content writers, just kind of with a, just kind of throwing it in and getting thrown out, what's happening is if you look around, a lot of these articles are becoming more and more similar. Things are becoming a lot more vanilla. So for the content writers out there, for the SEO people out there, all these, relish it a little bit and be a little bit different, because that is what's going to take you outside. It's just this information overload that's happening.
Yeah. So, and you've been asking me to write content for ages for my website, but I do leverage AI for content writing, but I use it as a base. I have it help me with my research, but I don't let it do all the writing because it'll never say never, but it'll never sound like me.
Yeah. I'm kind of right there with you, is it can save you time, right? But use that time to invest back into your business. Don't use that time to invest in something else. So I'm similar to you. I'll use it to help with research. I'll use it to help put together the structure of a document. And that saved me an hour.
Yeah.
I'm putting that hour back into that document or back into that research, because now I got 2 hours out of the time. I don't just that hour and just kind of throw out whatever it gave me.
Yeah. Yeah. And so me being in the review removal business for Amazon and ASIN monitoring for critical issues, like I've leveraged AI to help me write an article, and it's gone and gotten references on Amazon that I never would have been able to find because Amazon's got a bajillion documents, and it was cached somewhere, and it went, oh, here's your reference point on that. And I go read that article. And, I've been doing this almost 2 years, the review removal side of thing. I literally just found a sub website on Amazon all about how they detect fraudulent reviews and what they do about it. I've never seen it before once. So AI is definitely, okay, let's get back off of this AI thing and back into the e-com, but
oh, I would have loved to be there if you would have submitted that article and a ticket or something you put into Amazon, because whoever got that probably also didn't know that existed and was seeing it for the first time, right?
Yeah, a big part of dealing with Amazon is informing support of what their policies are.
Yeah. But we'll move on.
We won't go into
the for another one. I got a lot for you over there.
Yeah. And little spoiler alert, Sean's building, and maybe Sean and I will build together an AI tool specifically for Amazon sellers. That's all I'll say for right now, but we're in talks about that because he's got a really, really, really cool AI platform that he's building. But let's get into driving traffic. That's what I want to talk about is, okay, I'm an Amazon seller. I go, all right, I would like to diversify. I'd like to start a Shopify. I'm building a Shopify. Com is building my Shopify. Little plug there for you, Sean. And I go, cool, Shopify's built. Now, I know you, Sean, are not going to let it end there because I know you realize what comes next. We have to drive traffic to this place. And let me start off by saying that, and please feel free to cut in anytime, Sean, and correct me, but from the days of when I was doing SEO, when you're on Amazon, you seed your keywords, you put it in the title and body and bullet points and all that stuff. On Shopify, you mentioned metadata, right? So you're going to put keywords and descriptions inside the metadata is back-end data that the search engines read, but you as the user do not see or read. And so in an image, you've got a description and you've got metadata. And the description, if the image breaks somehow, it just tells you a little pop-up, this is what should be here. This is what you should be seeing. The metadata tells the search engines, this is what this image is, what it's for, what it's communicating, all that stuff. And so it's a point where you can put in a bunch of additional data so that when the search engines crawl your website, they go, awesome, this is highly relevant to mechanical pencils. And it goes way beyond that. So let's talk about driving traffic, because let's talk about driving organic traffic. How are we going to set up a Shopify site to drive organic traffic?
All right. Yeah. So there's a number of things that, of course, here we're just touching on higher level topics, but right off
Yes.
the bat, use what Shopify gives you because they have tremendous, as you mentioned, metadata and other things in there that are right there. They're not always super obvious because, we may not understand what all these words mean and the value, but take your time when you create, particularly your first listing, start at the top, work all the way down. If you don't know what a certain field is, research that field because every field on that whole listing there has a purpose. Maybe that purpose isn't for you, but it has a purpose. There's no field on there that you type it in. It's like, haha, tricked you. Like that's going to be used for something, right? Shopify also does, not dissimilar to Amazon. They have a lot of things built in the back to help their sellers. So they're already doing some optimization there. So getting in the right categories. It is something with Shopify, I will say that, can be a little bit irritating is that they have their categories and that is important for how they kind of help with the searching and stuff. It's, there's a lot of categories missing in there. They have been doing better at kind of adding them in. A number of sellers are forced to either not use them or put into the wrong categories. But, that's something I would address when you get to it. And if there's not a category that fits there for you, contact a specialist, go into how you could possibly do that, right?
You are the specialist. I recommend Sean, by the way.
I appreciate that. We're pretty good at what we do. So going down and filling in all the fields. Now, what you don't always see right off the bat is that Shopify also gives you a way to add in your own meta fields. So if what you
Really?
see there is not really what you need, and there's a number of really good uses for them because you can pull in data points onto the front end to show your customer, but you can also pull in search points. So some really neat stuff you can do there. And the two things that I probably see as the most common mistakes that people make on just organic search when they're setting up is when you put an image, add alt text to the images. Shopify's gotten better about adding that. They have some automation there.
Can you actually just define that real quick? You said alt text, right?
Yeah. So when you put an image on a website, that image, of course, is a visual for us humans. And we see, the mechanical pencil and it's, next to a ruler for a size comparison. We are getting closer and closer in many cases where these images are now being recognized and kind of consumed for information base. But what's been around for a long time and under leveraged in many cases, there's something called alt text, which is alternative text. And that means when your website's being looked at, not through human eyes, it's saying, hey, the content has this, it has this, and there's an image. Now, most people's file names, if they're well organized, might be, blue, this.
No, I
Sorry.
don't think
Yeah,
most people are organized
let me
like
re-say
that.
that. For people that are well organized, most of their files, that's better said that way, are
Yes,
structured like that. But for most users, it's 127658 camera, whatever, whatever.
JPEG.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So correcting that file name is great for your own records when you're finding it, but Heather is alt text and you can give it an explanation. You're letting it know the other systems that are looking at it, mechanical pencil, ruler, comparative shot, right? So think of that from the perspective of natural and organic traffic. I might be looking for mechanical pencil comparative. That now goes in and helps me bring in that organic traffic to them.
Yeah.
So
Or,
alt,
go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to hammer the point home. Alt text, put it in there.
Oh, yeah.
Get it on
Yeah.
your images.
Yeah. So another example would be, let's say you're selling a mechanical pencil, right? And you've got, let's see, this one, I don't know if you'll be able to see this. Nope, totally can't see it. So this is 0.7 lead, right? So there's 0.3, 0.5, 0.7, and 0.9. There are different thicknesses, right? And so let's say you're doing a writing comparison on how the different thickness of leads actually translate onto the paper, right? Now, if what you did was take a picture with your phone and then you uploaded that into your computer and then you put that straight onto your website and then you posted it, there is, outside of the human eyeball seeing that, there is zero value to that. Because, well, I can't say that now because we've got Gemini and it's got, it has its own image detection, all that stuff. But going like just standard SEO, you want your file name to match, to say lead, mechanical pencil lead size comparison. And then in the alt text, you expand on that. Lead size 0.3, 0.5, 0.7, 0.9 comparison on paper, and maybe that's all you put. I actually had a tendency to stuff it a little bit more than that.
Yeah, on that point there's a happy medium, right? When you
Yeah.
start getting too long, remember it's an algorithm, so everything's being put together. On Gemini and all these, you're absolutely right. They're getting better and better about seeing the image for what it is. But let's, not go too down technical drive. Remember with these search engines and ways that they're coming, the results are coming back relevance and speed, right? And it's a combination of the two. So if the information on your site is relevant and able to obtain faster, then it's likely it will be why it might be processing some other things.
So you're talking about page speed here.
Well, even just the alt text, right? So if there's an image on there and the image is defined in a consumable way versus having to be inspect, maybe it hasn't been archived before. It's deeper tech dive there, but make it easy is kind of the number one rule on organic traffic. What can I do here to make all Google and Bing and all of these things out there easy to see if what they're looking for is there? Don't make them do work if you don't have to.
Yeah.
There's
Makes sense.
And I'll add one more on there too, because I see this very, very commonly, is in Shopify, towards the bottom of the page, if it's a collection, if it's a product page itself, or it could just, be a page anywhere in there. The metadata isn't just these kind of single data points. I'm sure we've all seen it when you Google something and you see the result there and it's super crisp and clean, right?
Yeah. And it gives you...
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Exactly that. Mechanical pencil, and it's like, a 100-word description, but the description ends. It doesn't tail off, right? So, and right blows my price, and I'm like, boom, that's professional. That's what I want. I click on it. Go down to the bottom there and do that for your products, because like Amazon, where you have this very, very long title, Shopify, you might have a different one within your store. So there's a consistency and kind of a user interface sort of that makes it look nice. Down there, don't go crazy, like off completely different. Keep it similar, but go through the eyes of that person getting a search result, and you can really get better traffic that way.
Okay, cool. All right, sweet. So we've got obviously our standard title, our body and stuff like that. We actually didn't even cover that, but I think that Amazon sellers really understand that by now, is not to keyword stuff that, to make it read well. So on Shopify, you want it to read like a human because humans are actually reading it, right?
Yeah. Well, exactly. Humans are, they're starting with a question, not filling an answer, which is, I think that difference, if you're saying on Amazon, I want a mechanical pencil titanium, right? Like I'm a bit more specific, where with Google, I'm asking a question purely more often. I'm asking a question.
Yeah. Okay. And so let's talk about driving paid traffic. So I know you have extensive experience with that as well, specifically with Google Ads. And I'll give my 2 cents, and then I want you to follow up. My data may be a little bit dated here, but I think it's still highly, highly relevant. So it used to be the early days of Google, it was pennies to make millions, right? Because you could just drive tons and tons of traffic and just convert, right? And since those days, it's not pennies anymore to make millions, but it's gotten so much more sophisticated that the ad that you create, and this goes for Amazon as well, by the way, but the ad that you create needs to be hyper tailored to the page that it is landing on. Otherwise, the ad is not relevant. You'll end up paying more for crappier traffic. How am I doing so far?
Spot on. Keep going, and then I can just not say anything.
All right, that's perfect. That's what I like to do. I'd like to do all the talking. We'll roll with the mechanical pencil thing here. So I've got a page. Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, when you start with mechanical pencils, I'm like, that's random. That was an I love lamp moment, because you actually had a mechanical pencil there. So I was like, okay.
Yeah. I didn't want to use iPhone because, So keeping with the mechanical pencil, we build a Shopify site. We optimize it. We search engine optimize it. We have, let's call it one listing, and we now want to drive traffic. I can drive traffic to articles that are written about the history of mechanical pencils, what's being done today, the lead and all that kind of stuff. So that's one type, and that would be content. And I think you should be doing content. Would you agree?
Yeah, that absolutely. It pain to send traffic there. We could get into that a little bit later, but yes, putting out content is great. Again, we're humans. We do like to read and go through, and it helps in other areas of kind of your SEO and relevance to searches.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So would you run traffic to a page that is informative and teaches somebody about the product that they've expressed interest in, or would you run traffic straight to the listing for a sale? And what are the different types? Like, how do you do that?
So, hate to answer your question by not answering your question, but I might have to.
Okay.
The first question when you get into running ads is what are you trying to do? Right? Are you
Hmm.
trying to sell a single product? Are you trying to get brand awareness? There's a number of things you can be doing there, and defining that is one of the most important things
Okay.
because, as you mentioned, it's not pennies and
Yep.
it can get very quickly.
Yep.
So you can waste a lot of money because when you think about it, you don't know what you're trying to do, but you're paying something to help you not achieve an exact thing. So write down what you're trying to achieve. Brand awareness, single product sales. I mean, the list can kind of go on and on and on. And everyone, knows their business and hopefully they can answer those questions.
And if you don't, then just use AI to ask what sorts of ads should I be interested in running, and you'll get an answer and be able to go from there.
Yeah. Or, I mean, if you were going to do that, I'd go in and say, I'm trying to achieve X, Y, and Z. What source of ads,
Be
right?
more specific.
Yeah, lead it, don't be led by it is what I would just recommend there. Because its answer back is always going to be somewhat, well, it's going to be relevant to what you asked. So, be a little
I
careful.
I think that may be the most sage advice you've ever given.
I hope I haven't given you that much advice then, just in case,
So okay, that actually for me that was really important. Like lead it, don't be led by it. So I have a tendency to just ask a single question: what should I do about blah? Right? How should I drive traffic to my website? If rather than saying, rather than going with what I want the net result to be, which makes a lot more sense because you're going to get a much better answer. Sorry, this is just how I work. I'm just like,
yeah,
I ask a question, like, give me just the answer I want.
yeah, absolutely. Getting great tips and tricks over there, but going back over onto the listing and where I would go. So advertising, as we mentioned, you can go to a page, a product, there's all these ways you can point it. You can throw just a wider net. So Shopify has really good functionality in collections. They have customization of those collection page. So you can drive advertising to collections. Those can be all of one type of product. You can put them together however you want. Sometimes you can create collections specifically for ads. So I want to run an ad that really speaks to these 3 different buyers. But I've got 10 different products. Let me create a collection for these 3, give it some content. So it makes it quite easy to change and update your site and put out things even if temporarily to line up with your marketing. Now, on the beginning, again, first question is, what am I trying to achieve, right? And the second is get proper tracking in your website. Advertising can be very, very effective. You can get a lot of ROI on it, but the odds are that you're going to hit it out on the park on your first advertisement or two is unlikely. And unlikely not sustainable, right? Because people will see that those words are working, and it's kind of the cat and mouse game in there. So their Shopify built in has some pretty good analytics. I would not let my business rely on them. And to be
What do
fair,
you prefer?
yeah. So right away, make sure you get your Google Analytics integrated to it. Free to set up, quite simple. You can do a lot of advanced settings later. But just remember that until you start tracking data, you know nothing. So if you wait 6 months, you lost 6 months of data, a year, so on and so forth. That's really good for the analytical information of the site, right? What pages, where they come from. So that's fantastic, but it's not the whole part of the picture. There's other solutions. One is Hotjar. They make a very good solution. Another, Microsoft Clarity, is a free solution, and they deal in the analytics side, but where they focus is the heat map. And a heat map, for those that aren't familiar, is it tracks the traffic to the site and where they're scrolling down to and where the mouse is moving. Remember, online, we're clicking with our eyes. So that cursor and up and down the page is,
Is
kind of,
our eyes representation
yeah,
of our eyes?
exactly what that user is doing. And you may be super surprised to see that they're clicking right next to one of your buttons. Go around, there's a giant spot there because something you did on the text makes them think it's a button. And then they call those rage clicks. So they're clicking, 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 and then they're bouncing off, right? So getting those tools in place, the free ones, easy to set up, do that right away. Because while you're learning what you should be doing, that's going to help you make that decision.
All right, let me take this back to Amazon for a second here. Amazon has this data. They know exactly what your eye trail is doing. And as you are scrolling through the results of pages, they know where is your mouse landing and clicking. And then from there, it's conversion rate and stuff like that. We know our conversion rate, right? But what we don't know is where are people, like, where is their eye trail? I just poked myself in the eye. Where's the eye trail? My eye trail's left on my finger now. Because it's, and for us on Amazon, it's all about that main image. We want them to stop the scroll because they saw something in the flash of colors that made them stop and go, that's interesting to me. Let me click on that, right? So Amazon has this data, but you can get this data in your Shopify site. And if you can get that data, you might actually find out something you can translate back over to Amazon.
You're absolutely right, right? One doesn't fit the other 100%, but there are a tremendous amount of similarities in that, not only you can take what you learn from one and bring it to the other, but more importantly, you can take what's not working in one, right? So when you go over to Shopify, we know you have more freedom, right? You can build that page almost however you want. You can shift content around. You can show related products, not related products. Use your related products as an upsell, but have that mentality if you're an Amazon seller. If they're scrolling past my main product and they're clicking on these other products, that's not dissimilar to Amazon, right? They're making it past my listing and clicking on something else. At least on my website, they're clicking on one of my items, but you can see how that's almost the same thing. And so you can overlay it to a degree, not directly visually, but you can kind of look at that behavior as you go down, as you say, and clicking here or mouse and really enhance both. We've had quite good success on, I would say, correcting things and then bringing it back to Amazon more so than just taking Amazon success things and bringing them over to Shopify.
Okay, cool. All right, let's move towards a wrap up here. So far we've covered the fact that Shopify is not the same as Amazon. You actually have to it's a different technology, right? Because you have to not only build it, but when you're building it, you have much greater control of what the search engines are going to see when you're creating it. And then you have more control over how the customer journey is happening, right? But I also realize that if you're a career Amazon seller, you have likely zero prior information and data on how to actually do this. So I'll plug you one more time, Sean. That was not the intention of this, but I'll plug you one more time. But Sean over at 628, it's the number 6, TWO, the number 8.com. I actually have been working with Sean to develop something specifically for Amazon sellers that is as plug and play as you can get it. It's not ready yet, but, or maybe it is. I don't know. We haven't spoken about. Anyhow, the point is that you don't have to do this all by yourself. I have done it by myself. It is a pain in the ass if you have to learn everything from scratch right off the bat. So I even know how to build websites. I know how to do SEO. I still use Sean because his team is better at it, faster at it, and understands more about it. And I used to live in that world. I used to build websites, do SEO, do local marketing, do PPC, all that stuff. I had an agency, God, almost 20 years ago. Can you believe that, Sean?
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah. Anyhow, so going back to not plugging you, you have more control over Shopify and more information on what is your customer journey, where is your traffic coming from. That's another big one. We didn't even go into that. So on Google Analytics, you can see exactly where the traffic has come from. You have exact metrics on conversions. So if you do a Meta ad or a Facebook or a Google ad, or you can even track stuff from guest blog posts and stuff like that. So we won't go into that, but I think that, we should probably talk a little bit about that. Utilizing, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, because I'd love to come on, as often as you have me. As you said, we've been friends since the dinosaurs roamed, but I've really enjoyed watching you grow, not just yourself, but your businesses and all that.
I'm losing weight now, buddy. Thanks.
And, the fact that over 20 years, we kind of have moved through our spaces and stuff, and industries are like, is, it's a great way to just to hang out, right? So, but I think what might help, or we could do if you're interested, your audience is interested, is we can take some of these examples and do kind of a shorter podcast on that one. So, like I'm a seller that wants to get a website because I want to increase the value of my brand, right? Like right now I'm just a product. I want to be a company. So the purpose of my website is to add validation, trust, stability and growth. Another could be I'm a seller who wants to increase my Amazon sale. We could go down the list, right?
Yeah.
Because for those that are looking to get into this space, I think that the paths are a little bit different for each one.
Okay.
And we could focus in on that too, because where the traffic's coming from, where it's going, really defining the end result. What are we trying to achieve here? So I'll join. We could talk about anything, but that may be something we could do as well.
Yeah, well, maybe we can make that more into like a all right, let's talk about that because I feel like each one of those requires more than just an hour of time. It's more like a mini course than we'll talk about that. I
Yeah.
definitely, yeah, I think that would be amazing because I also know that you have the solution for each one, right?
Yeah, to be fair, I think, working with partners like you and other partners that we built over time, I think that we as partners in this space likely have the solution, right? So
Yeah.
if I can't do it myself, there's good odds I know someone that may be able to do it for that person.
Yeah. Yeah. I tell people the exact same thing in the Amazon space because I've been doing Amazon for 15 years and been building a network for that period of time. If I don't know the solution, I know someone that does, and if they don't know it, they know someone that does, right? So it's
Yeah.
like, the solution is out there and I can be a medium for that. And in your case, on the IT side of things, like all the things that us as Amazon sellers have never really delved into, you have those solutions. You want to build an e-commerce, a true e-commerce, then I would send people to no other place than you. And I know other people in the space that would do that, and that you are my first choice, which is why I came to you. It's not just because you're my friend.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that, obviously. And the same when you came to us for one of the first projects, we've known each other forever, but we switch into business. We go through, and so you're never hard to deal with, but you weren't easy on us, right? You know what you want and when you want it, and we're going to deliver that product. And afterwards, maybe we'll go have a beer to celebrate. But in the meantime, heads down until we get what we need done.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, that first project, that was an emergency for me. But the thing is you also made it your own emergency for me, right? And I
Absolutely.
know that that's not special treatment too, because I have seen you and how you work, and dude, the Bahamas. Remember what it took to get all that equipment to the medical facility there?
Yeah. Look, you said you've known me for a while. It's always my mentality, and it's a shared mentality within my company is we're not focused on anything other than getting the result. Everything else comes after it normally. Getting paid, all these other things, forget about that because the longer we go without getting the result, the longer the problem exists. And that problem is shared by all. So, something comes on your plate, it's an emergency for you. It's of course an emergency for me because as you do well, so do I, as a client and, and a vendor in that space.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, look, going back to and by the way, thank you for that. You really, truly saved my bacon on that one. But going back to what you were saying earlier, I think we should expand upon this because I think it needs to actually be a longer thing because I think that Amazon sellers need more direction than what we're able to give them just on a 60-minute podcast.
Mhm.
Like we've covered enough information for them to go, I understand that I don't just build a Shopify site and then the sales come in, right? It's not that easy. I wish it was. I
Okay.
thought it was a long time ago, but it's
There's like 10,000 YouTube videos that disagree with you.
yes. Yeah. That reminds me, one day I'm going to do a YouTube video, where I'm sitting on a Ferrari and outside of a nice house or something like that. I'm like, you know what? Selling on Amazon, and then the owner of the Ferrari and the house comes out and is like, I told you to get off my land. And then I run back to like my old Toyota Camry or something like that. But
Well, if you want to jump into it or do it, one of the ways we could possibly do it, and, I guess viewers and stuff, I would love to hear their thoughts on it is, yeah, it's likely more than one. But if people come in and say, hey, I'm a seller and I'm looking to do this. Hey, I'm a seller, I'm looking to do this. We always, I know you're the same way, try to get to everyone, but we can kind of let's let the voice speak, right? So if there's a larger number of people that are looking for one thing, I'd love to get to it all. And then we'll pull it in and we'll come back and we can do a podcast together. But right at the beginning, we'll let everyone know, like, hey, this is the first of three, or this is one. Something like that.
Yeah, like a little mini series. Yeah, I think better to not do okay, we'll talk about this. We're going to end the podcast here, but and then let's actually plan that out, Sean, because I do want to do that. All right. So Sean, thank you for being on the podcast. Anyone that wants to talk to him, it's 6.com, the number 6, the letters TWO and the number 8.com. And like I said, we have been talking about building Amazon specific tools and systems so that you can, as best as possible, just plop into an e-com store. So more on that later. But Sean, thank you for being here. And then we're going to go ahead and plan our next 4 episodes.
Well, thank you. You did a lot of kind of putting me up there, so I appreciate it. But for those that are watching, well, you probably already know this is your podcast as you speak. But if you haven't, reach out to Danon in this space. And, I've had a lot of experience in his consulting abilities, just really generally in business. The approach that you've taken, and I've seen you being able to come in and work with your customers, and we share a few customers and have.
Yep.
It's always quite both impressed me, and I wondered where you're introducing me to your customer that I think you met that morning, but somehow I'm talking to you and them already. I'm admiring your ability to kind of understand their problem and fit in with their team. It's an incredible talent, and it
thanks,
makes
man.
Working with companies like mine a lot easier.
I appreciate that. I've never been plugged on my own podcast here, but the reason for that is that I don't like to work slow, right? If I know I have the solution for someone, and sometimes this can be overwhelming to the person I'm helping, it's like, cool. I talk to them for 30 minutes. I go, cool. Does it sound like these are your main problems? Excellent. Intro, right? But of course, they have a lot more work after that than I do once I've done the intro. But yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I can leave you with a saying. I think someone said to me once, I won't take credit for it, but remind me a little bit of you. And I use it internally in my company, is when you're in a hurry, slow down. When you have all the time in the world, speed up. Because you go fast, you can make mistakes, and do it in a time where you have time to correct them. But it doesn't mean you're always going to make mistakes. But when you're in a hurry and an emergency, slow down and just get it done the right way. So, there's my fortune cookie.
I like it.
Anyone wanted
it? All right, dude. Thanks. Well, look, for the listeners out there, look for more content from Sean and I. We'll talk about it. We'll figure something out. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening. I'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you.